So will this podcast shed light on what really happened to her as a 15-year-old girl, or is it even appropriate to give her a platform to speak about it? Joining us now is Dal Babu, a former Met Police Chief Superintendent who's worked with her family and believes that Shamima was groomed as a schoolgirl.
And filmmaker Andrew Drury, he's visited her several times in the camp in Syria and says he initially felt sorry for her, but now believes she's playing the victim to get back into the UK. Well, let's start with you. Is it right that we hear Shamima's story in her own words on a BBC podcast, a platform that lots of people would love to have the opportunity to do?
Well, I think the platform, fine, but not with the licence fees money. We did it here, I did it with you here. And I thought that probably could have been a full stop. I listened to the podcast last night. BBC describe it as a forensic... she gives her information on how she got there and house traffic, and they forensically are supposed to research that. Well, I interviewed Shamima only a few months ago, and her words of how she's trafficked is totally different to the BBC's. She told me more information than they put out last night. So either the BBC are not putting that forward or Shamima ever told her, because there was a really important part, another girl. There was 4 girls, not 3.
I don't want to get into criticising the BBC directly,
OK.
because, as you say, we've all interviewed and we don't know the background to how that was researched or edited or whatever. Let's give the BBC statement. Actually, a spokesperson has said that at a time when there is public interest in the situation, listeners will hear Josh Baker, who's the presenter, forensically testing Shamima Begum's account, as you said, and carefully retracing her route from London to Syria. It's not a platform for her to give her unchallenged story, but a robust investigation. Now, whether you'd agree with that or not, is there something intrinsic? Because, as you say, she's been on this programme, and I'm sure she will appear on others. Is there something intrinsically wrong with her giving her side of the story when so much has been written about her?
If the side that she gives you is accurate.
Right.
She has a different Shamima Begum every time I meet her. So the stuff that we heard on the podcast, I said, is different to what she's told me, which means there's 2 different stories. She's either lied to me or lied to them or told a different story to them. So how much can we believe of her? I mean, I've believed her for about 6, 7 months until I've looked at all the footage, and it's not accurate. It's not accurate. Nothing's the same. Everything's different every time I hear something from her. And I don't think she's got any more to say.
OK. Dal, from your perspective, as you've been working with the family, you have a different perspective with regards to Shamima and what she went through. She's been groomed as a young girl before she even went out there. So do you have more sympathy for her situation, or are you suspicious of her motives? Because what Andrew's saying is that clearly some of the things she's saying just don't add up.
Well, Ben, we need to look at the context and the background to this. We had one school where one girl went out to Syria. She'd been radicalised. She then was bringing other girls from the same school to Syria. One other girl, actually from the same school, same friendship group, went and got as far as getting onto the plane before she was taken off by the police and security services. We then had the 3 girls going. Shamima was one of them. And at that point, none of that information had been shared with the parents. The school hadn't shared it with the parents. The local authority, Children's Services, hadn't done it, and the police hadn't. After these 3 girls went, we then had 5 girls from the same school, from the same friendship group, who had a court order preventing them from travelling. So my concern is why we haven't had a serious case review. It's been left to independent journalists, whether it's from here or from the BBC, to actually understand what's happened. And I think there's a huge amount of interest. I think if you look back to the story when it first broke, it was the most researched story in Google. You know, everybody wanted to know about this. So I think people want to know.
They do. So do you think fundamentally she deserves the opportunity to have that platform to share with this journalist who the BBC maintain is forensically challenging her on what she's saying, the opportunity to share her story and what she's been through?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the podcast last night for the first time. I was actually interviewed for part of it. My understanding is that they will look at... They've spoken to lots of different people. They've reached out to individuals and they want to try and understand why was there no serious case review? What was Shamina's background? Why did the authorities allow 15-year-old girls who they knew about to travel to Syria?
Andrew, if her motive is to try and get back into the UK and rehabilitate herself, that's not a motive that's understandable, isn't it? If you've done something at 15 that you regret dreadfully at 23, you are going to want to put rights wrong. I think any 23-year-old would.
I still agree that she should come back. I still believe that she should be tried here. I think she should serve a sentence of what she's done here. But I'm saying it's difficult with these podcasts. There's so many inaccuracies.
So what changed for you? Because initially you were sympathetic to her plight, weren't you?
What was changed? Several things have changed my point of view. Some tantrums that she's had, the change in her. When I first met her, she was, I would say, she was sorry for what she was done, what she had done. She was sorry that she had betrayed the country. And I think if she'd stuck to that and that was what she actually truly meant, maybe I'd have been a bit different. But then she changed to this traffic story. Then so every time... And also, the fact is... I mean, I had a brother who died when I was younger, and knowing what a child death is like, for her to say that the 3 children, she was over that part of her life, because she was texting me for a year, and the texts that I saw, and I thought, how can a human being be over the death of 3 children? 1 is hard enough, but 3 is difficult. So I was kind of changing.
People might argue that she's been through such a traumatic experience that actually her processing of emotion isn't perhaps as it would have been had she stayed in Europe. Yeah,
she put herself through that situation, and then the trafficking issue. That I have a problem with that, because after interviewing and speaking to her on several occasions, she never mentioned the word traffic until recently. So she said...
Maybe she didn't know what the idea of... I mean, traffic can have a lot of meanings. We have the image, don't we, that we're all thinking of somebody snatched. And I think she's talked about, at times, getting chocolate, because she thought when she got out there she couldn't get chocolate.
Well, I think, Kate,
that doesn't imply being grabbed, does it?
Yeah, Kate, I think you're absolutely right. This is, you know, this is not about somebody grabbed, put in a headlock and taken away. This grooming took a number of months, years.
Does that count as trafficking? Oh.
That's not true, because in the interview, and I spent a lot of time, I've met her 7 times. She never said she was groomed. She said that... I asked her, how long did this happen? She said, oh, this only happened over months by meeting one of the other girls that wasn't the 2 that have died. So that wasn't true. And she is putting herself into some sort of... I don't know, she's changed the way she is. She asked me for a book, and that was telling to me. She wanted Guantanamo Bay Diaries. So she's got this image now that she's been locked away illegally. She's not. She joined ISIS. She says that on a video. That's what she did. So she has to
account for that.
We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. Lots of you getting in touch. Emma says, bring Shamima home. She was radicalised in this country. She was a minor. Her stitching was third-hand info and not nearly as serious as the ISIS members roaming our streets and prisons. She was a child groomed. And then lots of you saying, Joe says, the vast majority saying, I think it's disgusting the BBC are using our money for Shamima's podcast. No one should have the right to come back to Britain or have a podcast after doing what she did.
We don't know if she's been paid, do we? Just to...
No.
You know, so...
I doubt that she has been.
Thank you both. I suspect this isn't going to go away, this one, but thank you very much for your perspectives on it. Thank you.
Thank you.